Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing my final review of this PSA Dagger here. I just hit over 1,000 rounds through this pistol last week and just ran it through a little competition this last weekend. So I finally feel as though I have enough information to be able to do my full review for you guys. If you didn't see it, I did a 500 round kind of first impressions video on this pistol just so you guys could see how things were going through the testing. I have done some troubleshooting of the issues that I had in that first video, and I've got a little bit more interesting information to bring to you on this time around. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I did not pay for this pistol, not yet at least. This was provided on a T&E basis by Palmetto State Armory. Basically what that means is they send me the pistol to do some testing with, make a review, do some videos, and then at the end of that 45-day period in this case, I can either send the pistol back or pay for it. I'll let you wait to find out what I'm going to end up doing, but if you watch the video, I think it'll be pretty clear. In this most recent series of shooting, I either shot it with no light attached or with this Surefire X300, which is about the same price as the gun itself. But I wanted the issues I was having with that Holosun to be kind of shelved for right now and not solely the testing of this pistol. But if you missed that first series of testing, let's go ahead and go into what the Palmetto State Armory Dagger is, starting from front to back. Now, this is the compact version. They do have a full-size version, which is going to be basically this but bigger. But at least on this compact version, I went with the optics ready version and suppressor ready version. So starting up front, we have a threaded barrel. This is 1/2 by 28 threads, which is the standard thread pitch for 9mm, at least here in the United States. On this version, it also had a little O-ring between the thread protector and the barrel that allows us to have good, I guess, torque on that thread protector, just to make sure it doesn't just loosen itself and fall off while we're firing. So that is a nice inclusion there. On the slide, we do have it optics cut for a Trijicon RMR pattern. So I've got a Holosun 407C on here, and then we've got some suppressor height sights. Now the sights are metal sights, which is a really good thing right out of the gate. However, these ones don't have tritium, they don't have paint, they're just totally blacked out sights. They do have serrations, at least on the front sight, to eliminate any glare issues off that front sight, but totally blacked out. Not a problem for me, especially if we're going to be running an optic as our primary sighting system on here, or especially if you're doing night vision stuff. But if you wanted to swap those out, anything that is Glock compatible will fit on this slide. I just like that we're getting metal sights right out of the gate. Now on the slide itself, we do have some front slide serrations along with some weight reduction. So we've got some skeletonizing cuts on the sides and on the whole contour of the front of the slide. Almost makes it look like CZ P07 or P09-esque, which I don't have a problem with. Theoretically, that's supposed to help with reholstering. Not that I have an issue with holstering regular old style Glocks. But the slide is totally functional. The front slide serrations work and feel nice, and they match up well with the serrations at the back of the slide also. Now, while we're here, I'll go ahead and say that if you saw the first video, again, you know that I was having issues with the optic coming loose. I can happily report that it is 100% user error on my part, and I'm honestly kind of embarrassed that it took me so long to realize what I was doing wrong. But I was out with one of my buddies doing some shooting with this thing, and he said, hey, and I was having issues with it coming loose again, and he said, why are you using the short screws? And I thought about it, and I realized that I had been using the short screws that came with an offset mount that I've been using with this optic on a rifle. And when I put the actual, and I guess really they were so short that I was only getting like 1 thread of engagement, like 1.5 threads of engagement. When I used the actual screws that came with the optic, I haven't had any issues with this optic coming loose since. So again, 100% user error for me just using the wrong screws. I guess chalk that up to me not wanting to read the instructions. So that is a good report there. That was one of the main issues I had before. So not an issue of the gun. Now, as far as internals on the slide, it's effectively Gen 3 Glock 19. That is not necessarily a bad thing considering how proven those things have been on the market and in law enforcement service for a very, very long time, not to mention civilian hands here in the US and elsewhere. Moving down to the frame, we've got, again, a lot of the same features of a Gen 3 Glock. So we've got an accessory rail down here so we can run lights or lasers like I was running that Surefire earlier. One of the things that I like about the frame is the cutouts around where the takedown lever is. So it's a little bit recessed into the slide. That gives your thumb a nice reference point, whether you're shooting right-handed or left-handed, and also gives you better access to that takedown lever. I have a lot of customers working at a gun store. When I'm showing them how to disassemble Glocks, the hardest thing they have to do with those is pulling down on that takedown lever to be able to take the slide off. This makes it much easier, gives you better access to that. So especially if you don't have that muscle memory to just do that quickly or easily, it's just going to make life easier for people there. One thing that I really like that they did in the change on the controls on here is that they extended the slide lock, but unlike most companies where aftermarket slide locks protrude out from the side of the frame to give you a larger ledge, this just moves backwards. So I have a little bit of a ledge, and I have relatively short fingers with my little Whopper Junior hands, and having that extend to the rear still makes it easy for me to be able to drop the slide with my firing hand without having to change my grip. So when I'm doing reloads, that is a much easier process and not something I've been able to do traditionally on Glock pistols. So I do like that. And by not protruding it out from the slide, I'm not running into fitment issues with a lot of the holsters available on the market. Now moving down, we do have the Gen 3 style magazine release. Now that is going to be one of my biggest gripes with the Gen 3 line of Glock pistols as a whole, not to mention all of the aftermarket or third-party Glock clones out there. Again, with relatively short thumbs, that's a little bit more difficult to get onto and could be the source of some of my magazine drop-free issues that we'll be discussing later. Again, totally standard for what this is, but just an ergonomic gripe on my part. And it's also going to make it so it's not reversible. So if you're a lefty, I cannot, at least not easily, switch that magazine release over to the other side. Do with that information what you will. Now on the trigger guard, we do have, I was going to talk about the contour here, but we'll go ahead and talk about the little indentation here at the bottom of the trigger guard. That is going to make it so, especially on most Kydex holsters out there, you're not going to get proper fitment with a standard Glock 19 holster. Now I actually picked up a holster for this dagger on Amazon because I just needed something to be able to do testing with. It was something that had good reviews and was one-day shipping, so I went ahead and picked up one of these holsters. I'll have a link down in the description below if you're interested in picking one up. It's actually been working pretty well for me. I had little to no expectations for it, but it is contoured for that PSA Dagger trigger, and it has actually been very comfortable and easy to use. Now this is a non-light bearing holster. I generally prefer light bearing holsters, but for something I was able to get in a day, I can't complain. Don't have the most testing through this thing yet, but you know, we'll continue as this thing goes. And if/when I carry this without a light, it'll be with this holster. But having that oddly shaped trigger guard is going to make it so having a dedicated dagger holster is going to be to your benefit. Now going to the contouring of the trigger guard, that was done to reduce the Glock knuckle that a lot of people tend to get when shooting Glock pistols. For those of you not familiar, basically the first knuckle on your middle finger, because of where it rides on that trigger guard, tends to get pretty calloused. Now, I have a pretty noticeable Glock knuckle already. I've got probably over 10,000 rounds through Glock pistols over my lifetime. So I've already got a pretty good callus going, and I don't notice it when I'm shooting my Glock 45, my Model 45 to be clear. However, I do actually notice some uncomfortable rubbing with this dagger. So if I choose to keep this pistol, I am actually going to radius this out a little bit more just to reduce that hot spot against my knuckle. Again, if I had a normal person's knuckle, maybe that wouldn't be a problem, but with my noticeable Glock knuckle, it is bugging me. And I will say it is already contoured from the factory on both sides, so again, theoretically, if you're shooting lefty, you shouldn't notice any issues there. Now they do add a little finger groove to the grip. I don't have a problem with that. It actually fits my hand really well. I never had a problem with the Gen 4 finger grooves, so I guess if you didn't like those, you might not like this, but it really ensures that I get a nice high grip on the pistol, which is what you want for that good recoil control and faster follow-up shots. Now, the cutouts at the bottom of the grip, I've heard some people complain about. I really don't mind them. They don't get in the way for me. It's unlike the weird Glock cutout on the front of the magwell that they did on early generations and on the early Gen 5s. It doesn't actually get in the way of my grip at all, and on those it was uncomfortable. This, it's totally fine, and especially because I was having issues with magazines dropping free, having the ability to positively get onto that magazine to rip it out was a good thing. Now, as far as the grip texture goes, it is smoother, I will say, than the Gen 4 or Gen 5 factory Glock texturing, but to me it's still positive enough that I feel as though I have a positive grip over the pistol, and especially if you're concealing inside the waistband, it's not going to be super abrasive against your skin like some companies' pistols on the market. So overall, ergonomically, I really like it, other than the things that are just going to be a par for the course thing for the Gen 3 Glocks, like that magazine release. And there's just a lot to like here. All of the stuff that I just covered, including the one Magpul magazine that it comes with, which I pretty much just threw aside right out of the gate, all this comes in at about 350 bucks, at least as of the time I'm making this video, which is an extraordinarily good value for what you're getting. At least in my local market, if you're looking for a new Gen 5 MOS pistol, you're looking at 650 to 700 bucks, at least for a 1917, something like that. So coming in at less than half the price with most, if not all, of the same features is really, really hard to beat. Now, the question though then is reliability. Does it hold up as far as reliability to the actual Glock pistols? And if you saw that first video, you know the only issue I had with reliability was shooting this thing suppressed with supersonic ammo. And I did do some troubleshooting with that. I had someone in the comments of the last video say maybe it was the Glock 17 magazines I was using when I was shooting supers. That didn't make sense to me, and I don't think that was a problem, and I did shoot after with the Glock 17 mags after figuring out what the actual cause was, and I didn't have any problems. However, someone in the comments mentioned, hey, can I put another aftermarket barrel in there if I wanted to try it that way? And I thought, well, all Glock 19 barrels, regardless of generation, are cross-compatible, so let me try putting some of my own threaded Glock 19 barrels in here to see if that alleviates the issue. So I have two other Glock 19 barrels, a Faxon Firearms threaded barrel and a Grey Ghost Precision threaded barrel for my Glock 19 and my Glock 45 respectively. Let me see if that fixes the issue. And sure enough, using both of those other barrels, it eliminated the issue of the piston getting stuck on the guide rod that I was having in the first video. So we've got the Dagger barrel with the can again, shooting the same 124 grain ammo. We'll see if we can recreate that malfunction with the silencer attached. Yep, so good. First shot, it did it again. You can see that it is not even trying to pick up that next round, and it's not locked in the notch. Let's change barrels and see if that continues to happen. And just again, so you can see, it's got the guide rod stuck on the piston. All right, now we got a Grey Ghost Precision barrel in here, again shooting the same ammo from the same magazine. We'll see if it continues. Totally fine. And you can see, hopefully, that the guide rod doesn't even look like it's going to come close to touching. I'm going to put another barrel that I have in there and see if it's still clearing. Now we have a Faxon Firearms barrel in here. That was from my Gen 4 Glock 19. And let's see if it continues. Again, still shooting the 124 grain SMB. Oh, we got a different malfunction. We got a stovepipe. But we're still not hung up on the front of that. So that tells me something. So I dug a little bit deeper and I actually looked at the other PSA Dagger barrels that I have immediate access to. I work at a gun store as a manager, and we are now a dealer for Palmetto State Armory, so we have some Dagger pistols in stock. And looking at those Dagger pistols versus this one, I immediately noticed that the amount of exposed barrel before the thread starts is shorter on this gun versus the other threaded barrels that I have and the other dagger pistols that I have looked at. So I did some measurements and just to try to isolate what was going on, and sure enough, basically the amount of exposed barrel on this was too short to reliably run with the silencer that I was using. So I busted out the calipers, took some measurements using the same dagger slide with all the barrels. And just to throw these out there, with the factory barrel that came with this dagger, measuring from the front of the slide to where the threads start, so i.e. measuring the amount of exposed barrel, I on this one had 0.10 inches of barrel before the threads. I put the Grey Ghost Precision barrel in, and with that one I had 0.15 inches exposed, so 5/100ths more of a barrel exposed. And on the Faxon barrel I had 0.165 exposed, so quite a bit more barrel exposed on those aftermarket barrels. And with the PSA Dagger pistols that we have at the store, I haven't measured them, but they seem to be closer to that 0.15 or 0.16 exposed versus this one at just 1/10 of an inch exposed. And again, with those other barrels, I did not have that same lockup issue. Now, I told PSA about my findings about the amount of exposed barrel. I'm still waiting for them to get back to me, but Palmetto State Armory was very receptive to this information. They were passing it along to the person in charge of the Dagger line, and presumably based on what I've seen with them do of the Dagger line in the past, they're going to be addressing this issue and making sure that that isn't going to be an issue on future daggers. Now, realistically speaking, most of the people that are going to be buying a PSA Dagger are not going to be running them suppressed. However, if you're buying a suppressor-ready pistol, you want it to be able to run suppressed if you ever have the opportunity. So making sure that they address that in the future is, I think, going to be a good thing in the long run. And that's one of the things that I think is important to mention about the PSA Dagger and really PSA as a whole, is they are very, very receptive to customer feedback. They have constantly been improving their existing lineups to make sure that whatever issues are popping up from different users, different reviewers, they take that criticism or take those critiques and then use that to make the product line as a whole better. We can look way back when Military Arms Channel was testing out the AKV and putting in the little buffer plate, like they named it after the Military Arms Channel because of that. A lot of the people that had daggers early on had issues with trigger pins walking, and PSA, as I've watched, so again, I don't typically go out of my way to watch reviews of guns that I'm reviewing just so I don't cloud my own opinion. But with this, I wanted to do that just to see what the track record was. And the issues you see people talking about in the early videos aren't being talked about in the later videos because PSA is going through and addressing those. And I would imagine that based on the feedback that I've given on this barrel, hopefully that will improve even that potential issue source as things move forward with their product lineup, which again, I think is a testament to Palmetto State Armory as a company. Every company is going to have issues, but what they do with that information and what they do with those issues is what separates one company from another, in my opinion, and PSA has proven time after time that they are receptive to that feedback and willing to accommodate it. All right, let me get off that soapbox now, and let's go ahead and continue. So, one of the other things that people might be curious about when it comes to the Dagger is accuracy, and really, like I say with pretty much every pistol on the market, the pistol is going to be more accurate than the person pulling the trigger. Now, there are some things that guns do to be more conducive to being better in the user's hands than others, but I can say that I have been very, very satisfied with the accuracy potential that I've gotten out of this pistol. As I mentioned earlier, I just ran this through a range day at my local range. Basically, in this case, I think it was 7 different drills, testing out with both rifles and handguns. So I was running this PSA Dagger as my pistol, and then my CZ Bren 2 as my rifle. And this thing did very, very well. During the speed steel stages, I was able to get really fast build drills done. We did a Texas Star single elimination thing, and running against pistols way more expensive than this one, I was still able to hold my own at least in the first stage. Austin, I love you, buddy. Sorry that I had to eliminate you in that first round with your fancy Sig Legion. But overall, this thing performed very well, and all the issues that I had with missing targets was 100% me and not the pistol. So overall, after 1,000 rounds, and I should also mention that I was very intentional, especially in that first 500 rounds, to only shoot what I know to be good quality ammunition, being in this case 124 grain S&B FMJ ammo. However, in this last just over 500 rounds, I did dabble a little bit in some other types of ammo just to see how this would perform. I had some super old Herder's aluminum cased nylon jacketed ammo that I ran through this, and it handled that just fine. And then I also tested a few different hollow points through this pistol, so let me go ahead and show you that testing real quick. To try out some defensive loads, I'm going to start with some 147 grain PPU jacketed hollow point. This is pretty heavy, pretty wide open hollow points. So we'll see if it likes to feed it. I got 6 rounds loaded up in this mag here. Alright, no problem so far. Now I've got some 115 grain Sig V Crown. See how this does. Just fine so far. Alright, next up we got 5 rounds of Hornady Critical Duty. Just some old crusty ones I had laying around. Last but not least, we've got some Federal HSTs. This should be the 147 grain Federal HST. Alright, fed everything I got so far. So overall, this thing has been very, very impressive as far as the reliability goes. Again, with the only exception being shooting it suppressed with supersonic ammo. And again, knowing what we know now, I think that that won't be an issue moving forward. So very, very happy with the reliability that I get out of this pistol, especially at $350. Typically, that was the price range where you really couldn't expect much out of a gun, especially not a good lifespan. However, this, again, has been proving to be a good performing pistol, not only for myself, but for a lot of the reviews that I've seen out there. And again, they're only going to be improving these as time goes on. The other benefit is they have a ton of different versions of this pistol available. So if you wanted a full-size pistol, you can. If you wanted non-optics, you can. If you wanted rear sight in front of your optic, you can. There's really no limit to the options or even colors. Obviously, being a fan of OD green, I had to get the green slide version of this. But I really think that PSA is killing it on the gun market. And as you can probably guess, I'm going to be purchasing this pistol so that I can keep it in my inventory and just continue to test it. And if you guys stay following, especially my social media, you'll be able to see if things change in the future. Because I do want to run this through like a speed steel match, like a pistol only match, just to see how this thing performs. I expect it to do pretty well. And we're just going to be doing a lot more shooting with it, and I'll be keeping you guys updated over on my social media pages. And with that too, if you are interested in picking one of these up, I will have an affiliate link over on my Facebook page because YouTube won't let me link to that stuff here. I can link to that holster with an affiliate link, but God forbid I include the firearms in there. So typically when I'm linking to firearms or deals that I find around the internet, that's going to be over on my Facebook page. So if you want to find deals or be able to find the exact firearms that I'm doing reviews of, definitely follow me over on Facebook because that's where you guys will be seeing it, at least for the foreseeable future. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw that in the comment section down below. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. I at least read every comment. It's getting to the point where I can't realistically respond to every comment, but I at least read them all. And if they're particularly bad, I will screenshot that and then post it to my Instagram page, which people tend to like. But I also want to say thanks to my patrons, because while PSA did send this pistol out for free for testing, all the ammo I put through it was directly funded by the support that I get over on Patreon. So because of the support I get over there, I'm able to bring reviews like this to you guys. So if you want to help support the production of videos and tests like this, definitely check out the links in the description to my Patreon down below. Because of the support I get over there, we post all the content over there early. We have some exclusive content. We're hopefully going to be starting up doing live streams again here soon. And I am actively working on getting stickers and patches. You guys have been very patient with me over there. I appreciate you bearing with me. But hopefully it'll be coming very, very soon. So if any of that stuff sounds interesting, or you just want to financially support the channel, definitely check out the links below. But anyway, with all that being said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.